Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today doing a Nekroz deck profile. So I'm really excited for you guys because this is one of my favorite ritual decks to play because you can summon out all sorts of really cool boss monsters with this deck. I have some really amazing tech cards in this build for you guys, so without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards, like in your name description every single video, getting a signed card sent in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month you're a patron, along with test stands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing a single copy of Nekroz of Arbalair, which is a really good boss monster for this deck, because this card has an insane on-field effect that when a monster effect is activated, quick effect, you can tribute a monster from your hand or field to negate the activation, and if you do, banish that card, which is absolutely insane. That this card is already a 3,300 attack point monster that is a walking negate in this build. We're then playing a single copy of Nekroz of Trishula, which also has a really good on summon effect that when this card is ritual summoned, you can banish exactly 3 cards that is in your opponent's hand, field, and graveyard, but you have to banish all 3 of them to get the effect to work, which is really awesome to just get rid of 3 cards that your opponent has with this extremely powerful monster. It also has a really neat in-hand effect that when a card or effect is activated that targets a Nekroz monster you control, quick effect, you can discard this card to negate the activation, which gives you a little bit of protection. We then play a single copy of Nekroz of Valkyries, which is an insanely powerful card as well that can help you draw cards. When your opponent's monster declares an attack, you can banish a Nekroz card from your graveyard and discard this card to negate the attack and end the battle phase, which is really helpful to just make sure that you're not going to get OTK'd. But this card is a really good on-field effect that during your main phase, you can tribute up to 2 monsters from your hand or field, and if you do, draw the same number of cards that you tributed, which is a really good effect. We then play 3 copies of Nekroz of Brionek, which is actually the searcher of the deck that has the ability you can discard this card to add a Nekroz monster from your deck to your hand, which is why we're playing so many 1-ofs in this build. It also has a really good on-field effect that you can target up to 2 face-up monsters on the field that were special summoned from the extra deck and shuffle them into the deck, being able to get rid of cards off the field, which is a really good effect. We then play 3 copies of Nekroz of Unicorn. Unicorn is an insanely powerful card in this deck because it has the ability you can ritual summon this card with any Nekroz ritual spell, and it must be ritual summoned and cannot be special summoned by other ways. And you can discard this card and then target 1 Nekroz card in your graveyard except another copy of this card and add it to your hand. And you can only use the effect of this card once per turn, and it negates the effects of face-up monsters on the field that were special summoned from the extra deck. Now that is an absolutely insane effect on this card because we're actually not special summoning from the extra deck all that much with this build, which is just absolutely insane that you can actually have a one-sided skill drain for monsters that were special summoned from the extra deck. So you're trying to get this card on the field as quickly as possible. We then play 2 copies of Nekroz of Colossalis, which is a good 2-of in this build that has the ability you can discard this card to add a Nekroz spell or trap card from your deck to your hand. Interesting fact, we actually don't have a single Nekroz trap card in the entire game, so this card can actually only search the ritual spell cards, which is kind of neat. This card also has the ability that on field that during either player's turn, you can target 1 face-up monster on the field that was special summoned from the extra deck, and until the end phase, the target's attack becomes 0, and also it has its effects negated, which is an extremely powerful effect to just stop your opponent's monster in its tracks. We then play a single copy of Incantation Chalice Slime, which is a really good card in this deck as well, because this card can just get you additional incantations on the field to search the exact card that you need, which is just a really good effect. We then play a single copy of Shuret Strategist of the Nekroz, which is a really good card in this deck. It can actually be used for the entire tribute for a Nekroz monster, which is really nice. And if this card is tributed by a card effect, then you can add a Warrior Nekroz ritual monster from your deck to your hand. We then play 2 copies of Incantation Kandal. Kandal is a good 2-of in this deck because it has the ability that you can reveal a ritual spell card in your hand to special summon both this card from your hand and an incantation monster from your deck. And if this card is special summoned from the deck, then you can add a ritual spell from your deck to your hand. But all of your incantation monsters share the ability that they lock you out of special summoning from the extra deck while they're on the field, which is a really interesting thing, but we don't special summon the extra deck all that much anyway, so it doesn't come up. We then play 2 copies of Incantation Talismandra. Talismandra is a really good 2 of in the deck as well that works exactly like your copy of Kendall that has the ability to reveal a ritual monster in your hand, special summon both this card from your hand and another incantation from the deck. And if this card is special summoned from the deck, you get to add a ritual monster from your deck to your hand. We then play 2 copies of Pencil Plume. Pencil Plume is a good 2 of in the deck that lets you reveal a ritual monster in your hand, special summon this card from your hand and an incantation from the deck. And if this card is special summoned from the deck, you get to target a ritual monster in your graveyard and add it back to your hand. The reason I'm playing this card as a 2 of in this build is because we're discarding cards so much like your copies of your Unicorn, Colossalus, and even your copies of Bryonic to be able to give you searches or add backs from graveyard. So it's really handy to play this card as a 2 of so you can grab those cards back out of the graveyard. We then play a second copy of Bookstone. Bookstone lets you reveal a ritual spell in your hand to special summon both this card and an incantation from the deck, just like the other ones, but this card lets you grab when it's special summoned from the deck a ritual spell from your graveyard and add that card back to your hand. We then play 3 copies of Zaborg the Mega Monarch. Now this card is a really neat 3 of in the deck that has the ability that you can tribute summon this card by tributing a tribute summoned monster. Never comes up in this build. But the really cool thing about this card is if this card is tribute summon, you can target a monster on the field and destroy it, which is always itself. And then if it was a light monster, which it will be since you target itself, both players send as many cards as possible from their extra deck to the graveyard, but not more than the original level or rank of the monster destroyed, which will always be 8 because you're targeting this card. And if this card was tribute summoned by tributing a light monster, it gains an additional ability that you choose the cards that your opponent sends to the graveyard, which is a really insane ability that basically you get to look at your opponent's extra deck and go, hey, I'm going to pick those 8 cards and get rid of them so you can't use them and get them into the graveyard. Well, we're sending extremely powerful cards that's going to benefit us, like our copies of Totally Awesome, Herald of Arclight, and even cards like our Adagnister Wind Pegasus, which is a really good card to send to the graveyard off of your copy of Zaborg. We then play a single copy of Ecclesia. Ecclesia is a really good card in the deck because we don't special summon from the extra deck anyway, so playing this card in the build helps out a lot because it's going to give you some really powerful searches, like searching out your copy of your Fleur-de-Lis, which is a really good card to search in this deck because it negates monster effects on the field, which is just absolutely insane because it has the ability that during the main phase, if a monster special from the extra deck is on the field, quick effect, you can special summon this card from your hand. Then, if you control another Dogmatica monster, you can negate the effects of one face-up monster on the field, which is really easy because you're always going to search this card off of your copy of Ecclesia. We then play 3 copies of Cyframe Gear Gamma. Gamma is insanely good because when you're resolving your copy of Zaborg, you're going to have that ability that you're not going to have a monster on the field when you're resolving Zaborg, so you can use this card to make sure that that play goes through. Because when you use your copies of your incantations to put them on the field, you're always putting them on the field as 2-ofs. So then you can tribute them for your copies of Zaborg, and when you don't have a monster on the field, you can protect yourself from hand traps with your copies of Gamma, which is why we play it as a 3-of. We then play a single copy of Cyframe Gear or Cyframe Driver. Driver is just a really good card in the deck. It is a Garnet, but you have to play it with your copies of your Gamma to special summon it out to your side of the field. That then you can then synchro summon into your copy of Cyframe Lord Omega and grab a card out of your opponent's hand, which is super helpful. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Nadir. Nadir is really good to help us search out our copies of Ecclesia and get cards out of our extra deck, which is really handy because this card has the ability to send a monster from your extra deck to the graveyard and then add a Dogmatica monster or a Fallen Albaz from your deck or graveyard to your hand that has attack less than or equal to that sent monsters, which is really good. It also locks us out of the extra deck after this card resolves for the rest of the turn, which is totally fine because we're not summoning from the extra deck all that much anyways. We're then playing a single copy of Incantation Inception, which is just a really good ritual spell to play anytime you're playing incantation monsters. 1 copy of Nekroz Mirror, which is an insanely powerful card in this deck because it has the ability this card can be used to ritual summon any Nekroz ritual monster, and you tribute monsters from your hand or field and or banish Nekroz monsters from your graveyard and then ritual summon 1 Nekroz ritual monster from your hand whose level exactly equals the total levels of those monsters, which is a really good effect. We then play 2 copies of Nekroz Cycle. Nekroz Cycle is a great ritual spell in this deck because it has the ability, this card can ritual summon any Nekroz ritual monster, and you treat monsters from your hand or field, and then ritual summon a Nekroz ritual monster from your hand or graveyard whose level exactly equals the total levels of those monsters, which is a really insane effect. We then play 2 copies of my personal favorite Nekroz ritual spell, which is 2 copies of Kaleidoscope. Kaleidoscope is absolutely insane and is like no other ritual spell in the game because it has the ability, this card can be used to ritual summon any number of Nekroz ritual monsters. That means you can special summon out a bunch of ritual monsters off of just activating this one card. You tribute one monster from your hand, field, or send a monster from your X deck to the graveyard, and after that, ritual summon any number of Nekroz ritual monsters whose total levels exactly equal the level of the monster sent. Which is really cool because you can send level 12 monsters or level 11, 10, any level that you have in the X deck to summon out multiple Nekroz ritual monsters from your hand that equal exactly the level of the monster you sent from your deck. For example, sending a level 7 will let you summon out your copy of Colossalus and Unicorn to your side of the field from your hand, which is a really powerful setup in this deck. We then play 3 copies of Preparation of Rites. Preparation of Rites is really good because it lets us add a level 7 or lower ritual monster from our deck to our hand, and then add a ritual spell from our graveyard to our hand, which is really powerful to add the exact ones that we need to go in for some really good plays. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the single trap that we play in the deck, and the only trap we're going to be playing is a single copy of Dogmatica Punishment. Dogmatica Punishment is searchable off your copy of Ecclesia, and is just a really good card in the deck because it has the ability to target a face-up monster that your opponent controls, and then send a monster with equal or higher attack from your X deck to the graveyard, and if you do, destroy that monster. And until the end of your next turn, after this card resolves, you cannot special summon monsters from the X deck, which is a really powerful effect to just get you a pop on the field. And sending cards like Elder Entity Nist will give you an additional ability where you can also pop another card on the field. So this card is a great one-of in this deck. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the X deck, we're going to be playing a single copy of the Sacred Flame. Sacred Flame is just a really good card in the deck because it just comes out really big because it has the ability that it takes 2 monsters, including a ritual monster, to summon this card, and depending on the amount of ritual monsters that you put into this card, it gains additional effects. If you put 1, it can't be destroyed by battle. If you put 2, it cannot be destroyed by battle by card effects, and also boost it by 1200 attack points. And if you put 3, neither player can target this card with card effects, and also gains an additional 1200 points, which is really good because it can come in at 4800 with all those bonus effects. Sacred Flame is really good in this build, and one of the only cards we're actually summoning out of the extra deck. We're then going to be playing a single copy of the Fossil Machine Skull Wagon. This card is kind of neat in the deck because it has the ability that you can banish this card from your graveyard and then target a spell or trap on the field and destroy it, which comes in really handy to be able to use this card. We then play a single copy of Skull Knight. Skull Knight has the ability you can banish this card from the graveyard and then target a monster on the field and destroy that card, which is really handy in this deck. 1 copy of Elder Entity Nist, because this card can pop an additional card when you send it off your copy of Dogmatica Punishment. We then play a single copy of Quasar Dragon because it's a level 12 for Kaleidoscope, a copy of the Trishula level 11 because you can use this card with Kaleidoscope, 1 copy of Star Dragon. Star Dragon is also really good because you can use it with Kaleidoscope to get the exact level that you need, 1 copy of the original Trishula because again, Kaleidoscope target, 1 copy of our Psyframe Lord Omega, which we actually do summon every so often in this deck with our copy of Gamma and Driver, 1 copy of Wind Pegasus. Wind Pegasus is really good because you can banish this card from the graveyard and target card your opponent controls and shuffle it in the deck, which combos really well with Kaleidoscope because you can use it to summon out your Unicorn and Colossalus to your side of the field and then banish this card from the graveyard to get a shuffle, which is really good. We then play for Zaborg targets. We're going to be playing 3 copies of Herald of the Arclight, which when this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add either a ritual spell or a ritual monster from your deck to your hand, and it is not once per turn. So you can use this card multiple times by sending multiple copies of it from your extra deck to the graveyard off of Zaborg. We then play 2 copies of Totally Awesome. Totally Awesome is actually totally awesome in this deck, because when this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add a water monster from your graveyard back to your hand, which all of our Nekroz monsters are water monsters, which is really, really cool. So that's it for the deck, guys. The only card that I did consider putting in here is a single copy of Titaniclad, but I don't really have the room with all of the Kaleidoscope targets. You can change out maybe 1 copy of Totally Awesome for it, but I didn't really have the room for it, so that's totally up to you guys if you want to include it. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a super fun deck to be able to play with. If you guys have never played with Nekroz, you definitely should, because it is an insanely powerful deck still to this day, especially with all of the different tech cards that I have in this build. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.